What do NASCAR, DTM, and Super GT have in common? Besides having four wheels, a roof, and fenders, of course. Well, back in the early 2010s, the three series were a lot closer than you might realize. So close, in fact, a proposed cooperation would have seen the three series collaborate on a brand new racing series. So what happened that delayed and then ultimately canceled this project? First, we have to talk about Class 1 touring cars. This class came about as part of a collaboration between the German DTM and Japan's Super GT series. The two series already shared some similarities, with the cars in both being purpose-built race cars designed to look like road cars from the manufacturers they represented. Therefore, it should make sense to agree on a custom rule set between DTM and the GT500 class in Super GT. Key technical features included a front-engine, rear-wheel drive silhouette car design with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing in excess of 620 horsepower, plus a common monocoque structure and a strong emphasis on cost control, safety, and equal opportunity among manufacturers. You know, buzzwords that every automotive executive likes to throw out whenever they're coming up with new rules for whatever motorsport they're fiddling with. The aim of all this was global. Vehicles built to Class 1 could race in Europe, Asia, and potentially North America. Yes, you heard that right, North America. Although we have a strong auto racing culture, no series exists here that resemble that version of DTM or Super GT. This is where NASCAR gets involved. Around this time, IMSA would get bought out by Grand Am, NASCAR's road racing arm. Instead of having Grand Am and the American Le Mans series battling head-to-head, the new IMSA under NASCAR's control would present a unified endurance series in America for 2014. But even before then, NASCAR was keeping an eye on the ongoing talks between DTM and Super GT. Indeed, as far back as 2013, there was an officially announced agreement between DTM, Super GT, and IMSA to explore a North American version of a silhouette touring car series. In an archived article on NASCAR.com, the second paragraph of the press release explicitly states, "The collective goal is a North American version of DTM, the popular German touring car series." So what would this series have looked like? Reading between the lines, this proposed collaboration was clearly manufacturer driven. The three automakers in DTM, Audi, BMW, and Mercedes, and the three main automakers in Super GT, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, all have a big presence within the North American market. However, most of their motorsport presence in America centered around GT racing or single-seaters, and not silhouette sedans, with the exception of Toyota and NASCAR. A new series would have been good exposure for a lot of these OEMs in their most important market. The idea was to offer a custom rule set so that manufacturers could run one car on 3 continents, hypothetically lowering the cost to compete. The OEMs were on board initially. This offers the opportunity to use the Audi RS5 DTM in a premium race series not only in Europe, but in Asia and North America too in the future. For Audi as a globally operating company, this development represents an exciting and interesting option. Bringing the DTM or Super GT style of silhouette racing to North America could have potentially opened up fresh choices for fans beyond the usual NASCAR, IndyCar, and American sports car categories. It could draw in new fans and global interest. America has never had a strong domestic touring car championship in the same vein as the DTM or even the BTCC. This could have been that series. Although the championship would have been run under the IMSA banner, NASCAR could also benefit from getting new eyeballs from Europe and Japan, and the relationship with the other OEMs that weren't already involved in NASCAR. NASCAR as a sanctioning body has significant infrastructure, fan base, broadcast reach, and a large network of racetracks throughout North America. This collaboration could leverage all that to launch a high-profile series straight away. If you're a Super GT or DTM fan, just imagine those cars at Road America, Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca, or even on the high banks of Daytona. Crossover events between the three series also could have raised the profile of global touring car racing even more. Rivalry among global OEMs on a unified spec has intrinsic appeal, brand versus brand across continents. But would this idea have really worked? Probably not, and that's why I'm making this video and you're watching it. There are several reasons why this proposal failed. Firstly, DTM and Super GT could not come to terms on a shared rule set themselves. While NASCAR was targeting a 2016 launch, that year came and went as DTM kept pushing back their implementation of Class 1 regulations. Another issue was that for the series to work, American automakers would have to sign up and build a Class 1 car themselves. There was no guarantee that all of the 3 makes from both Germany and Japan would appear full-time in a North American series, so it was vital that GM, Ford, or Dodge entered the new series. In an interview with Super GT head Masaki Bando, he stated that if the USA DTM style series takes place without US manufacturers like Ford or GM, then it has no value for us. American automakers showed little interest in developing a car for a series that did not have an official start date or even a fully locked-in regulation set. Another obstacle was fan interest. The reunification between Grand Am and the ALMS has ultimately led to a stronger, healthier IMSA, but back then sports car racing in America was even more niche than it is today. American fans expect something different. A lot of American racing is centered on ovals, so it was hard to say how many NASCAR fans could have been brought in to watch the new series. It was also important to maintain a similar style to DTM or Super GT so that existing fans didn't get turned off. Designing the series format, tracks, and presentation to satisfy everyone would have been tricky. Ultimately, there was no guarantee that the series would grow quickly enough to satisfy the manufacturer investment. Class 1 turned out to be cost prohibitive for some manufacturers in DTM. The rule set finally arrived in 2019, but it was an albatross around the neck of the series. Mercedes left DTM entirely, as they weren't even interested in the rule set. They were replaced by Aston Martin, but their program was so expensive they ditched it after 1 season. DTM organizers saw the writing on the wall, and the entire Class 1 idea was thrown out for 2021. Today, DTM is a GT3 series. A lot has changed for it over the past decade, and the Class 1 debacle ultimately changed the entire identity of DTM. Super GT is the only series that still runs Class 1 regulations, and it's a great series. The key difference though is that Japanese manufacturers are committed to spending on developing Class 1 cars, whereas German OEMs simply never were. Meanwhile, here in America, the idea of a Class 1 series faded by the end of the 2010s. There was a suggestion to include Class 1 cars in their own class within the main IMSA championship, but that too was quickly abandoned as GTD Pro replaced the outgoing GTLM class. Like most things in racing, everything is beholden to the OEMs. These car makers want the glory of winning in a series that already exists, rather than trying to get a new one up and running. We have seen in the past several years the growth of factory-supported hypercar and GTP programs, and GT3 as a class is popular throughout the world for a reason. It's a shame that NASCAR, DTM, and Super GT could never get a Class 1 American series off the ground, but the timelines never truly lined up. When the 2 latter series finally did converge, they were hit by the start of the pandemic, which brought about the end of the category's international future. I believe this story represents a fascinating motorsport what-if. On one hand, the concept ticked many boxes: global manufacturer appeal, a fresh motorsport product for North America, cost-sharing benefits of unified regulation, and a chance to link the 3 major motorsport cultures of the US, Europe, and Japan. On the other hand, the bumpy history of Class 1 showed that the cost was too high, and the returns on investment weren't what OEMs were hoping for. Without strong US manufacturer buy-in and a cost-effective package, the venture was pretty much dead on arrival. If done right, this collaboration could have elevated touring car racing in North America to a new level, given fans something new and exciting, and provided manufacturers with a platform spanning continents. In the end, its undoing was that no one could agree on anything, and enough time passed to where the concept faded into oblivion. Who knows if we'll ever see something like this proposed again. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.